Welcome to the Wise Heart Wellness Scientist Sage Sangha. I'm Nancy Anderson Dolan, and so glad you could join me tonight to talk about this idea of Dickering. And people were like, "What are you talking about?" And then when I explained the idea, they're like, "Oh my God, that goes on in my head all the time." And Dickering literally is this bartering back and forth. And it started way back in Rome when they had, okay, 10 hides will be a dicker. And then they would bargain about it. But it evolved a lot. But right now, it has a sort of a nasty undertone to it, like wasting somebody's time or pushing them or just trying to wring everything you can out of someone else, things like that. And it's interesting because as I started that, this was really more about the psychological side of it that goes on in our own heads and that. But when I went back and reread, I thought, wow, that's what's going on the political stage right now. This name calling and we're going to give you this, but we're going to take that, and you can't have that if we don't get this, and we're going to do this thing because we're going to win. Just this idea of I'm going to win. And often this is at someone else's expense. And when it's in our own head, it's at our expense. So the idea of dickering in our own head, I put a picture in the email that um, really captured it because I got to actually design it myself. And there's a fight going on in my head a lot of the time about what I think I should do, what I don't think I should have to do, and what I think somebody else should be doing or thinking or being, or all sorts of things like that. And the real price of all this is this dickering in our head, it creates constant confusion. And it really wears out our brain. Like your brain actually gets tired because your brain uses the most energy in your body of anything. And when you are constantly having that sort of thing going on, especially when it gets a little adversarial, and people are like, well, how does it get adversarial with myself? Well, just try thinking about, okay, I'm going to go and eat this food or spend this money or whatever. And the idea that, well, you really shouldn't do that. That's kind of irresponsible, or, you know, how smart is that? We really have this adversarialness with ourselves, and we pick it up from the culture. We pick it up from the expectation that is out there. And unfortunately, right now, if you talk to 10 people, 8 out of 10 are going to say they feel like they're doing something wrong. They could be doing something better and that sort of thing. And it's not horrible if they go, yeah, I think I'm going to work out getting up earlier. I think I'd feel better. I'm looking forward to this. That's not the kind of thing though. Well, I know I really should do this, but like I'm too, weak, stupid, slow, whatever. And that dickering is so harmful to our moods and our literal brains, because the chemicals that comes in from that kind of dickering, they come in as anxiety chemicals, as high things that increase your blood pressure, all sorts of things like that. And when it's going like that, the chemicals create toxins in your brain and then toxins in your body. And so this isn't just a, humorous side thing that's going on, or a little bit of self-flagellation, things like that. It costs us things. And the idea of it, this negotiating thing, that's not bad. But negotiating in bad faith, as we've seen on the world stage right now, is really bad. It shows a lot of distrust and insecurity and fearfulness. That's what we can do in our own brains. We don't want to, like even if I'm thinking about perhaps the politicians, and like, well, they're so stupid. It's all going on in my head. The dickering is in here. I'm not sitting the politician down or writing the politician a letter, but the dickering is going on in here. And if I feel like I have to be dickering like that with everything going on in the world and in my life, it's exhausting. And that's Dickering jumps in there and it just burns through so much energy. And that takes time away from our creativity, our caring, our meditating, all sorts of things like that. I've even had it start up in the middle of meditating. I'm meditating away, and then I get a little thought like, that person was very nice to me today. And well, I'm not going to do that for them. And now I've worked with the inner critic in my head and worked it into a compassionate champion. And my compassionate champion says, do you really want to be thinking about that? And I'm, oh, right. I don't want to be thinking that. No, I don't even need to think about that. That's crazy. I can just go, wait a minute, what am I thinking about now? Okay, I'm going to think about my puppy. Okay, perfect. Or I'm going to think about, I want to be active in politics. I want to do something. I want to feel like I'm taking a stand. Or what I do is I curate my social media feeds. I have really positive stuff on them. And there's all sorts of things I can do to keep my mind in better condition and take it away from the dickering that just seems to jump up. There's a lot of talking about this right now. Like we we don't even have to be intending it ourselves. Other people's stress can sort of flow on to us, and we're just an innocent bystander standing around, and all of a sudden somebody invites us into some dickering, and it might be like, look at all these prices, isn't this a horrible thing? But yeah, and I can't buy any carrots because they're this, or like we can get invited into that so easily, and that has been a way of social bonding for a lot of decades now. Social bonding used to be about celebrating and sharing spiritual experiences and positive experiences. And a lot of it has sort of devolved in this time to sharing these negative things. You are never without a friend if you start, dickering about something. Somebody will get in there with you and maybe against you, maybe align with what you're saying, but it's still this kind of bargaining and negotiating. Yeah, if they would do this, it would be like that, and then this, and then I would be, and I'm getting affected. And it can just be contagious. And so, if you hear somebody starting to talk like that, you have to step a little sideways. And it really is not actual, what they call the art of the deal. I mean, unfortunately, that phrase has been bastardized, we'll say, to be this horrible thing now because it was overused by people that were not trading and negotiating in good faith. And when we were in COVID, a lot of this came up because we got so divisive. People thinking that COVID should be handled this way or that way, and they were afraid. And when we are afraid, we dicker more, whether it's in our own heads, trying to figure out how we can be safe and how somebody else is at fault, or, if they would change that, or with each other. The one side saying it should be like this, and the other side, no, it should be like that. And unfortunately, that has these deadly consequences in things like the pandemic. And even in wars and international politics and in your home, when you're constantly dickering with a person, like, oh yeah, well, you didn't do the dishes yesterday, and now I have to do this, and you why aren't you going to do this? And that kind of dickering breaks down a relationship. And often it is just a matter of someone's stress level being way too high. And so they launch into that kind of thing, but take it out on somebody else. And so they're saying, well, why aren't you doing that? Or why can't you do it my way, basically? Because they're uncomfortable and afraid. But that puts both people in the situation, in trouble because there's pressure coming from a person who's trying to feel better and make things better, but they're doing it in a negative way. And that's a lot of dickering. A lot of relationships get in trouble because of that. And there's a real difference between people that are having a struggle in relationship and trying to work it out and that sort of thing, and people that are stuck in the dickering stage. Because when they're in the dickering stage, they're trying to trade and negotiate things. They're not going, oh, this is how I feel. Often they're going, this is what I want. And I would like you to do it this way, in this timing, in the way that I want you to do it. And you haven't been doing it that way. And they're judging, and it cycles down. And so the relationship becomes full of tension. And it doesn't matter whether this is a work relationship, a relationship with a parent and a child, or partners or family members. Once that starts to grow, people start walking on eggshells around other people. And the dickering, they expect that dickering about anything they have to say. They might say something about, you know, we should get the dog's haircut. And then all of a sudden this dickering starts, second guessing, negotiating. Well, what about that? And why not this? And it has to be this way. And often one person or the other starts to shut down completely, just pull out, because there's been too much dickering going on. And they feel less than. That's what happens when somebody is negotiating, not in good faith, and putting down another person. Like say, we've seen this on the world stage in the last few days. And there's, people, luckily, there's so many people responding to it, saying how irresponsible it is, and unethical, and all sorts of things like that. So it's not just a closed system that, isn't getting attention. But often, as individuals, we don't have that big audience to, reconfirm the fact that somebody's dicking around with us. That's where the other part came from. So literally, it's really important that we pay attention, and we stop that in our own minds, and we stop being, taking up the invitation when somebody starts dickering with us. And I was in a recent situation, and the person was really distressed, and they were saying, well, this and this, and what about that? And shouldn't you do this? And why isn't it like that? And I turned to them and I said, I am not going to be upset. And they just stopped. Like, you could see the processing was working, because I wasn't dickering. I was just saying, no, I'm not going to be upset. And they said, well, what if this doesn't work out? I'm not going to be upset either way. And that's where I'm going to be. So we can literally cut the dickering short by setting those kinds of boundaries. And it's hard if you've been the other end of dickering for a long time, because you often you can get depression. You can feel less than. You can, get disconnected from yourself. There's this lack of closeness or safety that you don't really want to say anything. But if you can come back to yourself and just go, oh, okay, no, this situation repeats itself all the time. What do I really want in that situation? I don't want to be responding to that person in that situation. So what would I do? Oh, and that came from I'm not going to get upset about this, or whatever happens. And that just stopped it blank. And so you try things on, not that everything will stop all the time, because often what happens first is it sort of escalates, because people that are dickering want to stay dickering, because they don't really have a good solution for how they're feeling. They might think they have good solutions for everything else and everyone else, but they don't have a good solution to deal with how they feel. But there is a lot of fearfulness and hopelessness and apathy on both sides. The person that's dickering is stuck in that loop, and the person that gets, sort of the brunt of it can get stuck there. And so it's really important. I put in the email that I sent out, if you can settle down and go, what do I really want? What's going on here? Great. If you can't, you literally have to get another sane mind. Doesn't matter where you find one. Could be the grocery store, could be the family, could be a paid professional. Just find another sane person saying, yeah, I get in that loop of the dickering in my head and with whoever. And it could just be, I've had lots of people talking about, they start dickering with the news. And I'm like, yeah, that's a real danger right now. There's a big invitation, 24/7, appearing on our TVs, on our phones, and everything, to invite us into that dickering. What's wrong? What's right? How can it be different? And that's not the same thing as going and saying, here's what I think about the situation. And you'll notice when you see those kinds of social media posts, they often lead with, you know, I'm not trying to force my opinion on anybody, or I don't often speak up about these things, but here's just what I think. And the other ones are, you need to pay attention to this because this horrible thing is going to happen, or you don't know what you don't know, that sort of thing. And really, I mean, it'd be great to just stay away from it entirely, but a lot of the time we literally can't. It's just sort of popped up in front of us, and it's like seeing a snake on the ground. If you can't unsee the snake, you go, and then have a response. And so having this idea that this might happen and how you might want to respond, literally, I will read something and I'll go, oh, I get all wound up. Wait a minute, right? That's not how I want to use up my precious brain cells, because I may not have a whole lot of them in any given day to work with, so I don't want to waste them. It's sort of like the gas in your car. You only got so much gas in your brain. But we often don't realize what we're doing too is we're rewiring our brain. And this happens all the time in difficult situations where it's gone on for a while, when people are literally in a war zone, in an ongoing difficulty. We literally create more brain time that the path gets walked and walked. It's been a little path, and then it becomes a super highway. And so when something happens, we get on that highway that says, oh, nothing's okay. These have to be different. And life is a struggle and all of those things. And we really got to slow down and literally just, okay, where's the off ramp? Okay, I don't feel good about this. Yeah, I'm just going to take the off ramp. I'm going to take a few deep breaths. And I really encourage people, the first thing is always awareness that I'm thinking a situation, or I'm in a situation with someone else that isn't good. I can see us just going around in this weird circle. And then once I'm aware of it, I can go, okay, just a minute, I feel something. It's weird. But if you slow everything down, even if you are repeating things somebody has said to you that you are having difficulty sorting out, if you say them in your head really slow, you will notice that you go, that didn't sound right. That's odd. And so in your speech, and literally, I will tell people, say in the mirror what you're saying here. And so if I slowly go, I really don't know anything about anything, I'll go, that's really, I can get dressed in the morning and drive my car. I can use my tech. I must know something. Okay, I'm exaggerating, that sort of stuff is going on. So it really is useful just to slow it all down. And what that does is start to get you on the off ramp. And once you're on the off ramp, you're going down, you're going off the highway. You can go, oh, okay, I don't know what the solution is to this. I don't even know what the truth is about it. But I don't have to keep repeating the thought. I don't have to keep up in the dickering, even though the person that may have started it is maybe they're on the TV, or maybe they've left the room. I don't want to stay in the loop. And so slowing it down is one way to get out of the loop. And when you're out of the loop, and I say that very specifically because if it's still racing around and you try to go into the next part of, is there something I really need to do about this? You will get the speedy version of what you really have to do. And you'll get, oh, I really have to do something about it. I have to do it really fast. And I have to make sure it happens this way. And that's not going to get you anywhere. Because likely you'll just be pulled back into the Dickering and meet that hard edge right in front of you. And then it makes you think that I can't do anything about it, which isn't true. But if you slow it all down and you can go, okay, well, is there anything I really need to do about this? Or is there anything I really want to? And that stuff really helps to find out, like, oh yeah, okay, I feel really strongly about this political stuff. I want to go and join a political party, or I want to, do something about this, or maybe I need to set a boundary. And that really is the next part. If I need to set a boundary here. And so if someone, I might say, okay, I'm going to make some chili for supper. And they say, well, I don't know if I really want that. And, it's kind of too warm up to be eating chili and it starts the dickering thing. Why, we could do this instead. What about that? Couldn't you do this? And one of the clues is you start to feel confused because there's too many things coming in at once where your brain's trying to pull away. And especially even in your own head. And having had an eating disorder for a long time, there were many things. I should eat that. No, I shouldn't eat that. Should I eat this? I could eat that. That wouldn't be so bad if I ate it like this, like standing up, not sitting down. And, crazy stuff, crazy stuff. But we don't even notice it's that crazy at the time of it. But the more you slow it down, the more you discuss it with somebody, and the more you think about, do I set a boundary? And I might set a boundary by saying, okay, I'm going to make a menu. There's the boundary. This is what I'm going to eat. So if dickering starts happening in my head, I'm going to eat that anyway. Or I might set a boundary with the person. And literally, by setting a boundary, like saying, I'm not going to get upset, or I'm not going to talk with you about this anymore right now. I'm not going to talk to you if your voice is in that tone. This doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere. You can set boundaries in lots of different ways. You don't have to, we try and fight what the other person is dickering with. And that's the worst way to work with this, because it just gets you back into the cycle of dickering. I'm right, you're wrong. That's not right. That's not true. That's not what's really happening. It just doesn't work. It's okay to just say, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. And it doesn't matter whether that's, I'm not going to talk about this anymore, or I'm going to get back to you later about this, or here's my opinion, think about it, I'll talk to you later. Just ways to set boundaries in conversation that stops the dickering. If I meet a salesman that is overly aggressive, and I've been shopping around for different life insurance, and when they're saying to me, but it's going to be like this and it's going to be like that, when they're talking this fast, and I'm not buying from you. And I will say things like, could you slow down and explain that word? And if they're willing to literally slow down their words, the way they're verbalizing, and talk with me, I'll stay and talk to them a little longer. But if they're not, then it's like, no, this is too much haggling for me. I'm not going to have a conversation with you. So it can be in so many different situations. And we might even get into that with, resisting life as our life is. And this is really tricky because we don't make any move to change life if we just stay in the haggling zone. It'll be all right if it's like this, but maybe I could do that. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I should do this. And I've been through that so many times in my life, and it never really helped. I just stayed still dickering while life flowed right past me. But if I can come to accept what's here right now, like, wow, this is a really uncomfortable situation. Let me sit down and, talk with a sane brain friend or somebody there, or let me, write about it a little bit. What is it that I really want here? What's the problem here? Oh, wait a minute. The problem is I keep saying the same thing and nobody's listening, or they keep saying the same thing and I can never agree to that. Oh, wait a minute. I can see there's a problem. I don't have to keep talking with them. But that's only going to happen if you're slowing it down. And writing it down too is really useful. And I trick people into doing that and say, just write down that inner dialogue. And sometimes they can go, oh, okay. I can see how insane this is. And I can see how it turns a corner, like right here when I start saying this or when I start feeling this. And sometimes I can't. But then they have a nice written out thing to take to someone and show them and say, what do you think this is about? So it's really useful no matter what happens with it. The idea, again, though, is slowing it down and getting clarity, because dickering is all about the person that has the most force wins, as opposed to getting clarity about anything and getting clarity about it, even if you want to win. Because I can be, pulled into things that I think I'm going to win. I'm going to win. Wait a minute. I don't even want to win this. And I don't even like the outcome if I do win. But I don't know that always before I get pulled into the Dickering. And it really can be challenging. So I encourage you to think about reprogramming that inner critic, or the part of you that sort of supervises you sometimes, and maybe not all that well, and really developing it. If you hear that critic talking about, like, no, that's not what I really need, because that inner critic is developed in response to our thoughts and emotions to protect us. I was working with someone today about talking about this, changing it into a champion as opposed to a critic or a controller. Because if we feel uncomfortable, the controller will step in and say, no, don't say anything. It'll make it worse. Or no, don't do that. Don't say this. Don't, they'll shut us down to try and keep us safe and get us out of the situation we're in. But that doesn't generally work with Dickering. It just, comes up in the next part of your life, the next time with you, that person or that situation or that feeling comes up. Often we have feelings that are driving these Dickering things. And often I can tell by the look on my partner's face if I am starting to dicker about something that she has no opinion on whatsoever. And I will be like, well, and I can feel the tension in my body and the tilt of my head and that sort of thing. And the look on her face is like, not sure what you're even talking about this. It's not like, no, that's not what I think. I think we should do this. We're not getting into that. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? And that's really when I see that, I go, oh, let's back up. I think I'm having a little discussion I've had in my head, but haven't made you privy to it before. And it's really not needed or appropriate. So those kinds of things about questioning your thinking and working with that critic that might be dickering with you otherwise. So then the last thing I want to talk about is the biology part. And it really matters about these biological things and biological basics, because if our bodies feel comfortable and good, then we literally don't have the feeling jump up like I got to protect myself, and we actually have more room. If I am eating food that has processed things in it, it irritates my brain and my body. And so I'm not feeling comfortable in my body. And so I'm more likely, when I'm not feeling comfortable in my body, to start dickering with people. And they may be doing something utterly reasonable, like, typing on a computer, but all of a sudden the noise bothers me. And, can't you do that out there? Do you have to do that right now? Or, that sort of thing. Or when they haven't done something I've asked for. And sometimes when they haven't done something I haven't even asked for, okay, let's be honest. But because I'm in that physiologically, well, I call it itchy bitchy twitchy state, I can start saying, well, why didn't you do this? Why this needs to be like this? And I start pushing. And we can tell when we're pushing like this, we're dickering with somebody. So we have to pay attention to those things. We need natural food. We need rest. We need being outside. And that can calm our body to such an extreme. When people say, oh, I'm just going to go for a walk and cool down, literally, their brain cools down as they're walking. And there is also about the issue of comfortable, safe surroundings and demands on us, whether, it would be money or just like sheer strength. Okay, grocery day. I really have to pace myself with the strength thing. I was carrying a lot of heavy groceries, and I started doing muscle lifts with them like this. And I'm like, do you really think you need to do that extra stuff? Just that little, lovely little champion of mine in my head, that's a little much. So it is just about not outstripping our resources, because every time we outstrip our resources, then when we're running on empty, it's so much easier for our brain to just fall over the edge into the dickering, or to take somebody's invitation into it. Whether that's, like I say, some piece of social media that pops up or a person in your life. There's these clear clues when you are negotiating something in good faith. You feel calm and comfortable. You're looking for a win-win for both. But there are going to be times when that isn't viable. When someone's so far off to the other side that whatever you agree to, they want something more or else. And it is because they're not feeling well in their brain and body. And so negotiating with somebody that isn't well in their brain and their body, it's really hard to get a win-win unless they fall asleep while you're talking. So I really pay attention to that. And those are the ones that you decide to pull out of. And if the clear clues from your biology are saying, I can't actually have this conversation in good faith today. I'm still pissed off about something, or I'm overtired, or I, ate something that's not agreeing with me, or, I have a headache, whatever it is. But really, then slow it down. And even if this problem negotiation is in your own head with your own self, put it on the shelf. Do not keep going. Because you're not gonna win this. You're not gonna sort it out. You're not gonna be able to step back from it. You'll just get on the loop. It's like being on a treadmill. And so I was talking about one of the things that I know. If I'm dickering, if I go, and I was trying to write that down in the email, and I had to it is like our breathing changes, and then we're humping, and that's a soft little snort, and it might not be even noticeable to anybody else, but I know if I'm doing it. And so I go, okay. And, that muscle tension, all sorts of things. So pay attention at that. At that point, take yourself out of the room, take yourself away from yourself and other people that might be interested in dickering with you. So, and the emotions that well up, I really encourage people not to take them overly seriously because they get welded into your body and they are really difficult to change. You'll have an interaction with somebody, and it's really hard not to go into interactions in the future with that emotion with them. So really take the time to let down, let go. So if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, that's different. Maybe it's just awkward to oh, yeah, no, I don't really want to do that. And would you be interested in this? But it's not dread. If you dread having a conversation with somebody, that's a dickering problem that you're locked into. It's a cycle that you're not able to shift. And so you really got to take some time with it. Because if I feel adversarial, I'm in trouble. It doesn't even matter if that person hasn't been adversarial. Chances are they have, and we have mirror neurons that mirror what the other person is feeling and doing as well. So if somebody else starts to be adversarial, it's a very good chance we'll be adversarial, and vice versa. So if I come in and I don't pay attention to that adversarial urge, I can make the conversation go off in an adversarial way. We're dickering without any chance of making a good solution. So pay attention to what you're feeling, what you're thinking, the level of your breathing. All those things can give you a good clue. Because if you know that, you can shut it down and back off and then come back to it. And the last thing I just want to say is that this doesn't mean that stepping back is not standing up for yourself. Often stepping back is the best thing you can do. So you know where you want to take a stand. And the earlier you do that, the better. By the time that I've been in the same situation for a few days, a few months, a few years, I don't always catch on quickly. That's why I have lots of hints about this taking me a long time. It costs us a lot and nobody wins. So we really, come back into finding out, can I be in this situation? Do I have to make a big change? Or, can that other person enter into negotiation with me in good faith? Maybe they can't. Maybe they can't actually do that. And then I have to make other decisions about how I'm going to navigate things. And I've been in places like that where I just have to make decisions for myself, and the other person may or may not like them or not. And I'll just say, no, well, that's what I'm going to do right now. And I can invite them into, if you'd like to do this, or if you'd like to have a conversation about this, but I don't want to pull all those other things into it. So we can work with it. But I really encourage you to explore that, not in conversation with the person, but just in finding out what you want, finding out what you're willing to talk about, what you're willing not to get into. Find out what are the words and feelings that give you the sign that it's not going anywhere, because it's just a huge, what they call opportunity cost in dickering, in negotiating, because the time you're spending on it, and the energy and resources you're using on it are wasted if there is not going to be a way to make a good faith negotiation. So that's the take on dickering tonight. And I thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching online later on the YouTube, thank you so much. I would love to hear comments about this or any other suggestions you might have. And we're live on Tuesday nights. If you want to get the emails and the links for those, you can send a email to scientistsage@gmail.com. So good night for now. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be.